Don't any of you have the guts to play for blood?
I'm your Huckleberry. That's just my game.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Fluffenbusters. My name is Adam White.
Yeah, sure.
I hope you're doing well. Now, Hollywood history is rife with parallel development. That's the fancy name for when ideas based on the same subject matter or theme are revealed to be in development by two or more rival studios at the same time. Now, often those duplicate shoots are quickly cancelled, but sometimes the studios decide to fight it out. And who wins in these scenarios is not always easy to predict, especially when Hollywood plays really dirty. For instance, good old Kevin Costner jumped aboard a TV version of Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, long after a rival movie project was already in the works. He then used his star power and connections to upgrade his project from a TV show to a movie, cram it full of stars, and then bully, harass, and sideline his rival until it was practically a bystander by the time both films came out in '91.
Wearing that badge don't make you right. The hell you think you are?
That same year, celebrated writer Kevin Jarre was scouting locations for his Dracula remake for Universal Studios, the home of the monster movie, when he found out that Francis Coppola had done exactly the same thing. He'd taken a TV show format, turned it into a feature, crammed it full of stars, and was advertising it to the press. And despite Jarre's studio, again being Universal, they panicked over the power of this new contender, and they dropped the project and him. Now, the reason I give these two examples is because these two events directly paved the way for today's film. You see, to apologize for Dracula, Jarre's studio offered him the chance to submit a new idea. Little did he know that his project, detailing Wyatt Earp's showdown in the town of Tombstone, would not only fall foul of the very same parallel development woes, but that good old Kevin Costner would go from a potential star that he reached out to a rival. One who did significant damage to the project and was determined to shut it down. Now, this project did get made, but it became one of the most traumatic film productions in Hollywood history. A production that the vast majority of cast and crew would not survive, Jarre included. If I told you that this film was left so compromised and damaged that many of its cast and crew were heartbroken, and yet still its fractured remains are regarded by many as a classic by moviegoers. The film I'm talking about is 1993's Tombstone, directed initially by Jarre before, well, that's a story in itself. And watching the film with me today and probably wondering just what the hell he's gotten involved with is the lovely Big D. How are you, sir?
I'm good, mate. And I'll be honest, I was not aware of the Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves was a TV project to start with.
Yeah.
Nor that perhaps Dracula was a TV project to start with.
Yeah.
Nor how they kind of did other projects dirty.
Yeah.
That puts a whole new spin on things. I'm quite excited for this because Tombstone, obviously it duelled with Kevin Costner's Wyatt Earp, which came the following year. And Earp was arguably the more prestige production in terms of how it was perceived by folks initially. Tombstone, I remember, it reviewed well, but it was never considered a hit, shall we say. But its legend has just grown and grown over the years. And people think of it very, very kindly, I've found.
Tombstone was a big hit, and Wyatt Earp was one of the biggest box office flops. The thing is, I wouldn't blame you for not knowing that because of the power of the press going on. So much about this film is due to the actions of others. I'll tell you what, should we crank up the film and get going?
Yes.
Just to let everyone know that obviously we do DVD style commentaries here. We've also just gone live as well on Spotify. So if you're interested in just listening to us, or you just want the convenience of not having to load up YouTube every time, then please go to the show notes. I'll put the link there and you can follow us on our adventures on that platform.
Absolutely.
Right. Now, since there are multiple studio intros before the film, we're going to pass all of them and start on the film itself, just before the cowboy narration kicks in. Sound good?
Yes.
Lovely. Okay, so it'll be a 3, 2, 1, go. So 3, 2, 1, go.
we go.
I'm almost relieved to be through the intro. This is where I give an apology to D. He's already aware of this. So I try and do a little bit of research for these films because, the best commentaries were always a mix of fact and then discussion and opinion and a bit of humor and a bit of irrelevance. But during the research for this, I found a book called The Making of Tombstone, Behind the Scenes of Classic Modern Western by John Farkas. It is about 460 pages of the most detailed production diary I've ever seen. Every person associated with the film is interviewed at length for this movie, and it is chaotic. And after my intro, when I said about the dueling films, all you need to know is the original script for this film that Jar wrote was so good, everyone in Hollywood would bite their hand off to get hold of this thing. But because Costner wielded his weight, he actually stopped everything from costumes being hired and props being given to actors going for the film. He literally tried to shut down every avenue to this film getting made. So this is a lot of the reason why you have such a cast full of up-and-comers, people hungry for good scripts, maybe just flying below the radar at the time, but many of which have become notable actors and actresses in their own right. And with that, all that out the way, sorry, D.
Oh, that's fine. It's kind of. I was really fascinated in it. Kevin Costner, if anyone's not aware, in the latter part of it, in the last few years of his career, he's become rather a polarizing figure due to, unsurprisingly, some of his political views and his association with a certain brand of
Americana.
Yes, partly through his role in Yellowstone, which has caused a lot of folks to reconsider some of his other stuff. But man, what you've just said about his actions in boosting Prince of Thieves and what he did with Tombstone, that really sours you on a man, doesn't it?
It does. I mean, the fact that Brad Pitt was down to play Wyatt Earp with Johnny Depp as Doc Holliday, and because they shared the same agent, he made sure that the stars didn't go for it. Welcome to the show where I blow your mind constantly.
I mean, yeah, the thing is, though, on one hand, yeah, that's a hell of a cast we missed out on, but what we got...
Oh, incredible.
I mean, I'm just looking at the IMDb page, and even Val Kilmer, obviously, probably film's MVP, but you have Michael Biehn as Johnny Ringo, which is the perfect complement to Kilmer in that regard.
Yeah.
Powers Booth as Curly Bill, which I rewatched Tombstone a few months back and was trying to think who the dude playing Curly Bill was, and I couldn't put it in my brain that it's Powers Booth.
Someone, by the way, who is so good at playing corrupt officials and corrupt people that I will say this, but I'm going to put the link to this book in the show notes, but there are some beautiful stories regarding him.
Yeah.
His care, his consideration for fellow castmates, just the way he helped a guy who was nervous with his lines, clearly did it to help the guy and not himself, but he was just so considerate. And all these people, I will say as well, there's a scene at the beginning here. The young lady, by the way, the bride, is actually a wardrobe assistant. And this is how chaotic the shoot got.
Wow.
But there's the translator here, the member of the Cowboys who's a translator. He's somebody I mentioned to Dee before we started this. He's a huge actor in terms of TV shows. He's really well known. If you saw him now, you'd know him in a heartbeat. He's just one of many, many people in this cast. Again, up-and-comers, everyone desperate for this script. And I will say as well, this script was so much larger that when everything went down as it did, the script, what you're seeing is a fraction, for almost every character, a fraction of what they had on screen. There was so much extra depth there, and a lot of these actors knew the situation, knew that the production was in real trouble, knew that the shadow director who was hopeless and the real director who was working his nuts off as well as starring in the film, they were doing everything they could, but they were compacting down scenes as much as they could. They like to the point where they go to actors one night and they go, "Hey, here's your task. You've got 2 scenes tomorrow. Can you make it 1 scene? Can you say everything you'd say in 2 scenes in 1?" Crazy, crazy stuff. And I'm saying this, I know this is coming out as a bit of a rush, folks, at the beginning of the film. But if I can set the stage for you, if I can show you that this is how all of these actors were working, and it was tough, it was so tough for them. But they still went ahead and they made this. And almost all of them, apart from when maybe a little bit of ego got in the way, all of them credit Kurt Russell as the man who held this film together and helped it get made. And my one thing before I do let Dee talk for a good long time is that Michael Bain has publicly apologized for this first scene, because this was not a mandated scene, but it was shot late and it wasn't anything that historically happened. And Bain was very, very passionate that Ringo was not like this. However, they have a situation, and you know this as well, Dee. At the end, Ike, who's magnificently played all the way through this, he's one of the best performers by Stephen Lang, but Ike gets away. And the thing is, Ike was probably the main bad guy, if you consider it historically.
Yeah.
But you can't have the main bad guy get away. So they had to then amp up Curly and Johnny to be more of the bad guy so that Ike could get away, but the audience would still feel like justice had been done, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, when did you first see this film? What's your history with this?
Funnily enough, I actually have this on VHS still. I watched it not too long after it came out, I think. Certainly in the 90s. I'll be honest, Westerns, I enjoyed Westerns, but they weren't really... I didn't really get on board the renaissance of Westerns, but Unforgiven kicked off or inspired. And Tombstone, I liked it, but I didn't really think... It was mainly because I wasn't really in that frame of mind as a movie watcher at that point. But I thoroughly enjoyed it as a very well put together piece. And I'll be honest, I wouldn't have known any of the issues you had said from watching it.
Oh, no.
Because it holds together incredibly well.
Yeah.
The idea that there's much more of this film of these performances that we've never seen is kind of astonishing. And I mean, the fact that even at this point we haven't seen a longer cut in this era where almost any film that has that sort of thing available seems to get it eventually. That's kind of nuts,
Yeah, they did add in a scene or two, I think it was an anniversary or a special edition or a DVD, but it was never much. Long story short, all of the footage shot, I believe, Kurt Russell has it.
Okay.
He was given it by the producer. I think as a gift for basically saving the film.
Yeah.
The scriptwriter, Kevin Jarre, was known for his detailed and character-rich work. He created films where almost every actor involved knew that they were going to get at least a moment to shine, a moment to say something of importance. Now, even after all the hassle that he'd had with the studios and Universal dropping Dracula, it was a kick in the teeth that Universal then backed out of this Western, all thanks to the spectre of Kevin Costner. And it actually left Hollywood Pictures and Synergy to pick up the pieces and fund this movie. And yet, after all of that, after they'd finally overcome all the obstacles and all the things in their way, they managed to get the film funded and ready for people to shoot. The one thing that they'd maybe taken for granted came back to bite them in the ass. And that was that first-time director Kevin Jarre really couldn't direct. And this seems like such a Hollywood problem. You battle tooth and claw to get a film financed, and then after all of that, the guy meant to direct the film simply can't do his job. But it wasn't that simple. He didn't have the skills or the talent in the crucial areas where a director needs to get the job done. He couldn't communicate with the actors and get the performances out of them that he wanted. And he also didn't really understand camera positioning. So he was wasting time trying to get shots that either didn't work or were physically impossible for a cameraman to get with the lenses that they had on set. And this was heartbreaking. It wasn't just a case that one or two people rolled their eyes. Everyone knew, both in front of the camera and behind, that this wasn't working. Now, this whole situation could have gone many ways. The film could have stumbled on. But the fact was that amongst all the stars, Kurt Russell was so invested in the film, and ironically, so invested in the character that Jarre had created for him, that when nobody else took action, he decided to step up. Kurt Russell asked around, and obviously he'd worked with Sly Stallone, and he'd heard that George P. Cosmatos had shadow directed several films with Stallone. So they basically dragged him on board.
Oh, wow. Wow.
That's what I mean about the amount of scope this film has. But they ended up, so George, who had the manners of a pig and was really quite offensive, like really bad. Amazed he didn't Me Too himself during the production. But he was the sort of showman director who was causing chaos. But it was Val, Kurt, and the producer who every night were sitting in a room working out how they could trim down the project, shoot stuff, basically directing the movie at night in production rooms and then going onto film sets and making it work during the day. And the only way they could do that is if the actors backed them. And yes, actors again got miffed because everyone got moments cut, but there was, this dedication to get it work. In fact, one of the actors that got cut a bit was this guy. So we're seeing in this scene, Val, he's just an introduction scene, and he just gets a competitor riled up. That's Stallone's brother.
Oh.
That's Frank Stallone. And it's because he met the original director, Jarre, and they talked about their love of Westerns. A lot of the bit players on this film have still got involved while Jarre was there, and they're on board because they're dedicated to the genre, or the romantic appeal of the cowboy. Even though, of course, as we state at the beginning of this film, cowboy itself was a term detested in that neck of the woods because the cowboy gang were scum.
Yeah.
And the worst thing is, they were driven there by the good efforts of Texas and other states who drove them out. So, of course, they went somewhere where there wasn't a solid police or martial force, and that's when they came to Tombstone.
I knew a bit of the stuff about the cowboys and whatnot, but that's kind of fascinating.
We're talking over, of course, Val, who's just magnetic in this film.
He is. There's a quote I read a little while after Val's passing from Michael Biehn, who said, working on Tombstone with Val, never knew Val Kilmer. Would have Doc Holliday, though. Which, Kilmer had some cracking roles, but this, to a lot of folks, became kind of one of the ones I'd probably say, top 3 performances?
Yeah.
And it's kind of a toss-up between this, The Doors, and Top Gun? And even Top Gun's probably... He's great in... everyone's great in this, to be honest. Kurt Russell, who... This was kind of like... Would you say this is like the peak of Russell's star power in a lot of ways?
I don't know. It's very odd. He was able to get this made. He came on board whilst the Costner stuff was happening.
Yeah.
But when it was still at Universal. Then when it got dumped, he got involved and helped get it made. He drew in as well the two parties, the Hollywood and the Synergy. The only thing that funnily enough, the Doc Holliday that everyone wanted, and I've now bloody forgotten his name, Willem Dafoe.
Oh.
But Synergy, I think it was Synergy, said no because Last Temptation of Christ was out at that point, and there was a lot of furore over that.
Yeah.
So they
Yeah.
went, if you can get Val, then we'll do it. So I think it was, if you got Russell, then Hollywood was involved. And if you got Val, then Synergy was involved. And that's how it came to pass. But Val, it's interesting because Val came on board this as a support. But although he was method and he was Val and he was everything that you would expect, and yes, he stayed in character.
Yeah.
And he was incredibly respectful, apart from the odd time when he'd be extremely playful. But it's weird, he committed fully to being the trusty sidekick, but still owning the screen. It's an incredible balancing act.
It is. And it's one of those things that you mentioned about how he stayed in character, he was method about the way. You hear so many stories about people who do that the wrong way and just are kind of assholes.
Yes.
And like you say, he was respectful.
He was.
And he was committed to being the loyal sidekick.
He was also quite drunk a lot of the time. But then a lot of the cast and crew were quite drunk.
You have to imagine that from just to get through the shoot, that might have been a requirement, to be fair.
Well, they also as well, they went for real authenticity. So these are wool costumes. So because that's what they had back in the day. But also as well, like when you see any guys drinking a shot, that's hot whiskey. Because they didn't have cooling, they didn't have aircon, obviously, but we take that for granted. And it's like, can you imagine drinking hot whiskey for about, in this case, I think it was 3 months. I mean, poor old Stephen Lang said after this, he had an even bigger project, which was the Battle of Kidney Stones. He was just, and he wasn't joking as well. He said it was just a nightmare.
Yeah.
But these guys, they kind of lived this film. They bonded over it, which is why even like for instance, in this scene we've got Bill Paxton in the background. He was still emerging at the time. He was quite cocky. He had little things he wanted to do. Like he originally wanted a gimmick where he ate an egg in every scene, and then he got very sick, so he changed it to an apple. But he was sort of going, "I'm going to be a big star." But at the same time, he was supportive and helpful and kind. Sam Elliott here butted heads, like even Kurt, because Kurt did get really annoyed and wound up because this entire project was on him. Ladies and gentlemen, if you hear, Kurt Russell apparently shadow directed this, he directed this, but the pressure on him meant that he frequently lost his temper. He apologized as well many times, but even like Sam Elliott had to call him out once or twice for his treatment and said, "You do not talk to these people again on this shoot. I will sit with them. I'm dealing with them. You back off." Again, it's respectfully done.
Yeah.
But it's just the consequence of working in such a challenging environment.
Absolutely. And it's one of those cases where it's good to have someone like Sam Elliott who can step up and say that to Kurt or to anyone overstepping, really, because I can imagine it's so easy to, if, like you say, Kurt was under a lot of stress because he was directing this film on, in quotation marks, secret. But it's still fascinating though that everyone seems to, although, like you say, there's a lot of heartbreak about the cut that did get out. I don't think I've heard anyone who was involved in this film actually badmouth the film itself, the end result. They're all quite fond of it.
I think there was a lot of like worry and fear, I'd say, on set, and there were comments, especially after the first screening, but they were done, actor to actor or actor to cast and crew.
Yeah.
Whereas once the film came out, you're then in Hollywood mode, but also within a month or two of it coming out, you had this thing like, I think it was, the two main American commentators,
Siegel and Ebert.
Thank you. God, I've basically got too much information in my head, so I'm going to forget to breathe in a minute. But Like, they weren't originally going to review this, but it came out for a day and someone said, oh, Val Kilmer's in this film, he's really good. Then 2 days later, Val Kilmer's in this film, it's really good. A week later, you really should check out this film. Val Kilmer's in it, he's really good. And so they eventually went and saw it, and that was the buzz around a lot of this. And even when you have a scene like this one, where the first half of it was Billy Bob improving, he literally apologized to the person he was going to berate and said, I'm going to improv, don't cry.
Mm.
Then they run through the scene, and Kirk does a multitude of things in a small moment. A beautiful, beautiful scene. I think Billy Bob only came into it as a favor to the director, like the replacement director at this point.
Yeah.
And then it ends, and the final line that Kurt says about, so what do you say, 25% sound about right? Pure improv. It was like on the last take. He just added it. Because you have people that are living in this world. They're literally living on set. You've got these incredible sets and costumes and environment, and in that case, a rubber gun, which famously hit the barman more than once. And just all these little stories and all these little things have come out about it. And yet, because the world looks so rich and lived in, you totally believe it. And you're right, you totally believe Kurt as well.
Yeah. I mean, it's a wonderfully, like you say, it feels lived in. It feels like it doesn't feel like a Hollywood, the classic Hollywood Western set.
Mm.
It's clearly, the template for that sort of thing, but everything just has the extra, feel to it.
Yeah. Well, one thing that they wanted to do in this film is, so in the UK, when we see films about, I don't know, Mexico, they always have this orange filter over them. Or if we see a film from Africa, it has a tobacco filter over it or something like that.
Yeah.
The perception of these climates and views. If you see England, it's got a grey filter over it. They've taken out all the colour. They said, look, Tombstone at this time was booming. It was bright. It was busy. It wasn't ruined and ramshackle. Let's not make a film like this. So that's why you actually seeing a bright, vibrant town. Funnily enough, though, towards the end of shooting, part of this area, because this isn't obviously Tombstone, but part of this town was redone over by Sam Raimi because he was starting to do production on Quick and the Dead. And of course, they then took away all the bright colors and made it dusty and run down. And all the crew really noticed at that point how odd other films tended to depict the Wild West.
Yeah.
But you're right, this is a town of luxury at this point. I mean, look at what Billy Bob is wearing. He looks incredible. He looks really dapper. All of the men do here.
Yeah.
They look very, very nice.
Yeah, I mean, this is Boomtown.
Yeah.
This is mining the Silver and Venvera Hills territory, as Scroll says at the start. It's it's one of the things, because so much of the Western genre came about in, well, pre-Technicolor, really.
Mm.
And then afterwards, you had that deep saturation. So you did have those filters that had to go for the real separations. You didn't get this feel like we're seeing here, but Tombstone has color, it has life to it. All the build, and the thing is, this is my archaeology hat going on. You see it in so many interpretations of past buildings, where they're actually, what was it? There's a type of building that we tend to see it a lot of time. It's been done up in blacks and whites, but in reality, they're actually they would have been rich in color. And same thing with, take for example, medieval armor. In the Victorian period, a lot of those were stripped back to the bare steel because they thought that's what it was. When in reality, a lot of these had lush enamels and paints on. And as we've learned in the last decade or so, ancient statuary.
Yeah.
The classic statuary of Rome and Greece, a lot of those weren't just bare statuary. They were painted. They were literally, yes, they were wonderful representations of the person depicted, but they were also painted over to look like them. Which to our eyes, yeah.
It's the same with the West, isn't it? It's the same. These were rich and vibrant worlds. They were business. There was money flowing through them. They were there was just such a depth to it all, and a lot of that still shines through in what's left of this film. And I say left, this almost sounds negative, but again, the book is a real eye opener, because the fact is, because they put so much work in and there's so much depth to the script and depth to the world, when they then cut it back, you still have the basis there. You still have the depth of richness, and although it's fleeting when you see shots, it's all there, which is wonderful.
Absolutely.
I do have to give quick props. So we had a very, very quick moment there with two guys, Texas Jack Vermillion, who I always thought was Texas Jack Million. I don't know why, and Turkey Creek Jack. So Texas Jack is played by Peter Sharenko. He's one of the guys who came on board with VAR. He was there at the concept stage for this film. He does a little gunsling spin with his hand because he can, and I think he showed off to Val about it at the time. But he's like the remnant of the film as it was first made, and I love the fact that he's technically, at this point, you think he's a bit part, but he ends up being part of the main core right at the end. These two actors who have very little experience, or they have some, but it's just they become almost central to the film because so many other members of the cast and crew either disappear or their character dies.
Yeah.
And so I love their story because it's a little bit of redemption.
It is. I mean, because you've got Michael Rooker as well, who we saw in the first scene.
Yes.
Even then, you can see he's given his character a little bit of. I'm not entirely sure I'm happy with this, but it is quite nice when he and those guys come back later on as part of the posse that Wyatt rounds up.
And there's so much more as well that they shot or that was conceived. So the nice thing is that you do see this. You can see that they clearly, like Rooker, when you see him, he's clearly working to a long-term plan arc for his character. You don't see it all, but it does mean that when you see him in a shot, he has some intent, and I really like that. It's like here when we have the scene of the theater, and you have the haves and the have-nots very, very close together. But all the cowboys are working as a unit together. They're mucking around, they're doing stuff. And then you've got the people in the balconies who are what, 5, 6, 7, 8 foot above them? They're close enough to almost touch, and yet they're two different social statuses. It's fantastic.
Yeah, and is this probably one of the few bits of a film where the majority of the cast are together?
Yeah, absolutely.
God, I can't imagine what the logistics would have been like for this.
It was tough, and also the director as well. George was causing chaos, so he yelled at, like, for instance, the juggler that you saw. They gave him weighted, heavy things because they were full of pyrotechnics for the thing to blow up, and he couldn't juggle. And this is Powers Booth stepping to the rescue, and then you've got Billy Zane here, so Jar's ex-partner was Lisa Zane, Billy's sister. Lisa was in the running for Dana Delaney's character, Josephine. And in fact, it was written for her. It was written to be a representation of her. So when the original director left, she was gutted because she'd been demoted from the lead to actually playing Doc Holliday's woman. But then when the director got fired, she was quietly axed. And Billy obviously wanted to leave as well, but he kind of couldn't, so he had to sort of stick it out. But these people, these individuals, have so much importance to the story, and yet in real life they were just trying to seize every small moment they could.
Yeah.
Oh, I love the lighting effect as well of using the whiskey to. Because that's what they used to do. They used to hold coloured bottles up in front of lights to have low tech scene changes.
Yeah, and there's something about this scene. It does a wonderful job of getting across how this sort of stuff would have been performed. This was. I know that the Cowboys are kind of being a bit raucous, but this was this was their version of,
Yeah. This was TV. This was movies. This was everything. It was it meant something to them.
Yeah. You're getting pieces of productions that people would have known about in some way if they weren't unaware of these things, but bring a little bit of that to a world where it was still a bit rough, So it's wonderful. It's like when you see people actually doing a silent movie production, actually representing it properly. So with the music properly in time and the film at the right speed. So it makes you understand it much better. You don't, because you tend to think of things a little off because of how it's transferred across to us over the years. But when you see it actually in action, it's like, oh, I get it now. I understand. But it's a nice moment because it is where you have pretty much everyone, all the heroes, all the quotation marks villains, are together in one area, and they're all actually they're having a good time. All of them are.
Yeah, and it's not there is a little moment just at the start of the scene where you're seeing the same thing happen. I think it's just following this. There's just a little moment, but because again the cast, and I know I keep going back to like the depth of the film, but because they wanted, look, this was a town. Everyone lives in the town. It's almost like a soap opera. Everyone goes into the Coronation Street pub or the EastEnders pub. And they wanted to do this same thing here. So you see, at the start, especially, the Cowboys are all in the pub, all the dealer room with these guys, and nobody's starting anything. It's only when somebody does make an attempt to do something that it kicks off. But at the start, it's still simmering. It's still going there. And I do feel sorry as well for this young lady. I want to say that this was Dana Wheeler Nicholson. So there were 3 Danas. There were 2 actresses and 1, I think, key crew member. So they call them the 3 Danas. But this Dana has Mattie Blaylock. She has like the most. It's not the nicest of roles. Let's face it. Her character is damaged from the start. It's actually heartbreaking.
Yeah.
To see that she's not getting the attention, and she's an addict.
Yeah.
Ironically, in real life, Wyatt swapped one addict for another because in real life, Josephine Marcus was a hell of a controversial person. And in fact, a lot of the story. Oh, by the way, this is what I mean. Sorry for folks who are just listening on audio, but we're seeing a casino bar that's full of the Cowboys and the Wyatts. And they're all just enjoying themselves right now. Nothing's kicking off. They're all almost shoulder to shoulder with each other. And it's great. And then somebody has to eventually start it up. But yeah, you just wonder as well, what would have happened if White had played ball, or he just rolled over or he'd somehow managed to convince the Cowboys that he wasn't interested. How would this story have turned out?
Yeah, Earp's kind of interesting because this is the thing that people know Wyatt Earp for, but it wasn't at the time what made his name. This was his retirement, effectively. He'd come here to put himself out to pasture.
And he, sorry, go on, Dave.
No, go on.
You're right. He'd come here for retirement, and in fact, the story of this, after he passed away, it was Josephine Marcus who reimagined the story and basically put it out there and got people to write a different story about how this happened. So the legend of Wyatt Earp is actually something that she's manipulated, especially in her later years, to create this legend.
Yeah.
And it's why, at the end of this film, they talk about the actors that went to his funeral. The reason that they were involved is because she was trying to sell the story to Hollywood. You know, she was a very canny person. She had a lot of faults, but so the legend of Wyatt Earp is not the reality. And in fact, Josephine, it wasn't the case that she was just visiting as a troupe. By the time Wyatt Earp came to Tombstone, Josephine was actually, I think, either in a relationship or was married to the mayor, to Beeman,
Okay.
or Behan, should I say.
Yeah.
He married her when he was 30 and she was 16. There was a lot of stuff going on back then. So again, a lot of this stuff it's like a legend has been made of it. But you know what? I think it's a good legend. I don't mind that it's not 100% true because I like the idea of, the good triumphing over evil.
Absolutely.
Now, you said you saw this on VHS.
Yes.
When would that have been?
I think I got this in 95 or 96.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure I still have it around this. I'm terrible for getting shot of VHS tapes. To be fair, I have more every time I keep finding them in places like where I thought I got rid of stuff, and it's like, oh, there's another batch. But yeah, it was one of those films that I actually wanted to pick up. So
Nice.
sorry, just enjoying the moment of the big standoff. So,
There's a lot of it. I mean, I think as well.
yeah.
Stephen Lang does such a. I know we talk about. Look, we've got to talk about Val. We've got to talk about Michael, especially in these moments. But Stephen Lang, who by the way was given a script, he never auditioned for this. Like a lot of the key cast, he was just told you're playing this role, and I mean, I hated his character. I obviously did, but he does such a fantastic job.
Oh yeah, he plays Ike as such an asshole.
Yeah. He's just constantly stirring, and it is a frustration that he gets away, but that's legitimately what happened.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of, you mentioned as well, Michael Bain talking about his experiences of working with Val, and they formed a very respectful bond during this film. But both of these guys as well got extremely proficient in the use of their guns. But it's worth saying these are prop guns, but they are fully weighted prop guns.
Yeah.
And as Michael has said, you would take a real expert and somebody with a God-given talent to do what he did in this scene constantly without a break. But he said, given enough takes, he could do the whole thing. And Val did the same. But what people don't realize is that to help him, because he had to obviously do both the guns, but he also had this thing with the cup.
Yeah.
He had a weighted cup. So there's literally lead in the bottom of that thing. That meant it was more akin to the weight of a gun, so that he could practice with both, and he would then have that comfort, as opposed to practicing with a heavy gun and then trying to practice with a light tin cup. And for anyone as well, and I know so many facts. I'm so sorry, D. But this is not in the book. But Michael said as well, he didn't speak to Bill much during this shoot because they were in different camps.
Yeah.
Different characters. But people forget, these guys were on the Aliens cast. They knew Jim Cameron.
Yeah.
They had a really strong bond and friendship. But during this film, they're enemies. And people always forget that because they're so immersed in their characters.
Yeah. See, Bean's on. I love how he plays Ringo so cool and calm, but then what he does with his eyes to bring out the madness, especially towards the end.
Yeah.
It's spectacular. It really is.
He's a character looking for both absolution and looking for death. He's a very tragic character.
Yeah. I mean, Doc's no saint, but it's in fact they are pretty much mirrors of one another. Now that may just be how the film's chosen to depict them, but it's still a really interesting way of presenting the dynamic, because they are the two deadliest men in any room in this film. They really are.
They are, and there's also as well the way the relationships, like the actors and the characters, develop those roles together. So, for instance, Howard Booth and Michael Biehn would hang around with each other, but the characters, Johnny would only really talk to Curly Bill. He wouldn't really talk to the others. He'd throw an insult at them. Only at the end when he assumes the mantle of leadership. But a lot of it, especially during the longer cut of the film, or what we're told is the longer cut, I should say, it was a case that Powers was, or sorry, Curly Bill was the one person who Ringo would accept conversation from. And he really was considered a scary person, even by his own, his own team of cowboys.
Yeah, which makes a lot of sense, because man, the dude's a bit of a.
Yeah.
I mean, the rest of the gang, the way the actors play them, a lot of them, sure, they do some deplorable things, but you can understand a lot of their actions, because, like I say, they're on the run, they're desperate in a lot of ways, but they're also, this is their found family, you know. That is played as a fairly tight group overall.
Well, there's little things that they did as well to help that. So, for instance, I've now forgotten their names as well, and I want to say Juggalos, and I'm probably going to be terribly embarrassed if I get it wrong. I'm going to say Juggalos. If I'm wrong, let me know. But basically, there was a group of cowboy performers, because this shoot wasn't allowed to get a lot of props and costumes from various places. Again, Costner really tried to cut off all of the elements of creating this film. So they ended up going with a lot of reenactors and these performers who would bring their own period costumes with them. And so you had this big group of people, especially for the extras, who literally lived just off the set in tents for almost the entirety of the shoot. And if I tell you that there's still like community groups made up of all those people, they still keep in touch. And in fact, occasionally they will have a big celebration. Admittedly, it will be in Tombstone, but you'll get a lot of the cast and crew turning up. And they do it not because it's just paid event and, a star, I can make some money off this, but because they genuinely loved it. Absolutely loved it.
Kind of awesome.
It says a lot. Yeah, and real families were formed, and because again the environment, like the director was so nasty, he really was. I can't tell you half the stories about him, but because of that, everyone else bonded together.
Yeah,
when they weren't being fired left, right, and center.
Yeah, I did read a piece on Tombstone. I think it was probably on AV Club a couple of years ago, which did dig into some of those, and it was like, oh.
Yeah. They just. I mean, there was one. I think one guy was told to pick up a rapper, like he was an AD, by the director. But I think the director had dropped anyway, and he went, "No, you pick it up," because he was sick and tired of all the abuse, and the director just fired him on the spot. And then for the next couple of days, all the ADs wore one of these rappers pinned to their shirt as a protest. And stuff like that. Like the Catherine Hardwicke, who was the art director here, was treated horrifically all the way through the film, and yet she put up with it and put up with it and put up with it. And she has so many stories about that. And ironically, when she left here, she then became a director. She ended up directing the first Twilight film.
Yeah.
And she's had a healthy, director's credits and career ever since. She's done all right, but she never forgets just how nasty the director was on this. And they have all sorts of stories about it. So,
yeah, you never like to hear things like that, unfortunately. But
it's a shame. I will say these little moments, these what I call the love story moments. These are the ones where you can actually tell that they've started compacting the script. Because Wyatt actually asks her here why she's taken up with the mayor, why is she in a relationship with the mayor. It's never established that.
Yeah.
But they talk about it here. And she basically says to him out and out, I'm a woman, I can do what I want. And by the way, I want you. And they speed run it. And they have to because there's so much that they're trying to get through. It's not their fault. It's just the way it is.
Yeah. I mean, it makes you wonder what. Like I said before, I'd love to see an extended cut. It makes you think Russell has the stuff, and he's kind of one of his things is he's known for being quite a film as a medium. It does kind of make you wonder. He wouldn't hold on to it for no reason, you know. There's it's like does he have a plan? Is there something he can't do anything with it? But it's interesting because I mean Kurt Russell I find a fascinating figure in Hollywood just because of how his. I mean, people forget this is a guy whose career started when he was a child. He famously, his was one of the last names spoken by Walt Disney before he died. And he has maintained a pretty solid career for what? He's in his 70s now, so like for 6 decades.
Yeah.
It's astonishing. Absolutely astonishing.
It's ebbed and flowed, but he's kept going.
And he can kind of do everything because he's been romantic leads, he's done comedy, he's done a lot of action, even. And I think he's done action where he's been a comparable figure to Stallone and the like, even though he's not actually that. He was never really that big a guy in terms of his stature, but he has the presence to do it, and he can. I mean, I've quite enjoyed his stuff in Monarch, the TV show for Apple, tying into the Godzilla movies with his son Wyatt, which is just fascinating double act. But I don't think I've ever watched a film with Kurt Russell in, but I've not been at least entertained by, even if the film hasn't been particularly good.
I might have a suggestion for you then. 3,000 Miles to Graceland.
Oh yeah.
Which he made after this, a good maybe decade after this. He made it, and it was with Kevin Costner. And the film was apparently the film shoot was okay. They didn't butt heads, but they did disagree very much over the final edit. So much so that the studio actually gave Costner and Kurt their own power to edit the film.
Oh lordy.
Costner's edit was preferred, but it went on to bomb horribly. And it was funny because you noticed that Costner, even though he was the lead, he got his name demoted to the second on the posters. I think he was trying to avoid the stigmata of another stigma. I'm mixing up my words so much on this show. By the way, it's buckaroos, by the way, for the riders, not gigolos. But yeah, the funny thing was they kept the original poster design. So Kevin Costner was front and center. And I remember when that film came out, everyone went, oh, Kevin Costner's got another dud.
Yeah.
And they didn't even mind that Kurt Russell was in it because Kurt has so much cash for his indie films that he could do whatever he wants and he's always going to be a legend.
Yeah. I mean, even when he had stuff like Escape from LA and Soldier, which are not exactly setting. They didn't exactly set critics or box office alight. They actually did well enough.
They did okay after the fact.
Yeah.
I think a lot of them do well after the fact. He does say, though, that he said it, but I think other people have said it more, that he sacrificed a lot of his own role for this. And funnily enough, that ties into another film. So you know that wedding at the beginning? You know
Yeah.
when you see that little fountain? That fountain might seem familiar to you because that town, that area, that fountain were featured heavily in the Three Amigos. Because, of course, these were the sorts of sets that a lot of Hollywood movies used. But I say that because the Three Amigos is one where I think Steve Martin came on board, I think quite late, and did a lot of work on that and ended up rejigging the script. So he gave a lot of the comedic lines to other people and saved a lot less for himself. So he sort of sacrificed his role a little bit for the good of the film.
There is something to be said for an actor who is still is a star, but has the self-awareness of production ahead of himself.
Yeah.
You know?
I think the cachet of being a good person on a set, even though I say Kurt apologized to people as well for his behavior and being aloof and not socializing and everything that went on. But he had to do what he had to do to get this done. And then you're working with people like Powers Booth, who are just incredible commitment, and they just balance this role so well.
Yeah.
Now, fun fact here, but the marshal, and again, it's very telling as well that the mayors, both the mayor that's the, let's face it, the patsy, but also the mayor that tried to hire Wyatt Earp in the beginning, they don't do anything. They let this marshal die.
Yeah.
And it's almost the coward's way of sending a man to his death. But in reality, the marshal said on his deathbed, the gun went off by accident while Curly was handing it to him. So this kind of happened, but it wasn't Curly Bill's fault. But they made it more intentional because, again, they want to make you realize the danger of this crew. And I like that Ike he's incredible at this point because he's blustery, he's arrogant, he's dangerous until a gun is against his forehead, and then he's the worst coward. And it's almost like a 180.
Yeah.
He's either 100% aggression or 100% coward, which takes a lot of work.
Oh, hell yeah. And it says a lot of... I mean, Stephen Lang's an actor who, in the last 15 years, I've become a bit more of, because of things like Avatar and what he got off of that, or made him more aware of people. But man, I'm so to seen him as being quite rangy and loose. Seen him as Ike, where he's barely not chunky, but he's got more mass to him. He's got more.
Yeah. Is it fair to say that he's become known for being sort of lean and jacked?
A bit, yeah.
Almost a bit of a cliche. I know. I mean, I'm sure that helps him with some roles, but I know he's got a lot more depth.
Oh, absolutely.
It's almost like seeing Thomas Hayden Church in this.
Yeah.
Playing a dumb idiot when the actor himself is more measured.
We're so to seen them at a later point in their careers.
Yes.
Where they're much more worn in. I mean, Hayden Church has just I became aware of him in what the one he did with
Sideways?
Yes, Sideways. And after that, and at that point, his face was quite lit in. It's like a decade after this, I think. So that gives you a different interpretation of the actor. So going back and realizing, oh, that's them, that's him, and it's like, oh, gosh, they looked young. This.
Well, they also as well they helped the show again. They had problems with every aspect of building this film, so of course they also looked to TV actors. This is why you have the likes of John Corbett, who was very, very big in Northern Exposure at the time.
Yep.
He has a little role here, but you also have Jason Priestley.
Yes, I was going to mention him
as Billy. Now, he was white hot at the time. His role was cut to pieces. He had a much, much larger part. I mean, he's admitted as well. He's like, look, it's just glad to be involved with the production. But these guys, they all came on board for this project. There was tension. There was tension between the buckaroos and the stunt people, between the TV actors and the film actors, between the leads at points. All of them were trying to figure out how to do this thing. And then you had the cast that kept quitting and doing stuff. So, you've got all these little moments. And yet, but then when it comes to action, everyone needs to suddenly find these roles again. Bill Paxton's still eating an apple, which I like. He kept going for a while with that. He really did.
Yep.
But they're all still trying to find this way. And you'll notice as well just how many people are in each shot. Yes, you've got your little moments between 2 or 3 characters, but this is one of the most filled, lifelike towns that I've seen in a film, because they had hundreds of extras, and they were constantly on rotation and constantly moving around, and often as well they would mix, and you would have the likes of Sam Elliott or Sam Elliott's wife famously in several moments, who would actually go in as an extra and hang out with the extras. And
cool.
They would keep the spirits up there as well during these really hot days and long shoots. And it just built this township, which I think builds this sense of community within the film. It's really weird. I think you've said it before, and I've said it on different shows, but we talk about there's a film that, as it's conceived, a film that's a shot, a film that it's edited, a film that's shown, and a film that it's legacy. You're different versions of the same film. And when you realize the community spirit here, the film takes on an added edge. And I will say the only thing that ever broke this film for me in terms of fourth wall was the moment that we're seeing here with this one quick shot of a mother. Because the mother, that actress, not only was huge in a show called LA Law at the time, and I could never quite figure out why she was suddenly plonked in there. I imagine she had more scenes. But she joined Kurt Russell's next project, which I'll talk about during the end credits, because this project, Tombstone, explains part of the way he looks the way he does at the beginning of his next project.
Okay.
God, look at me coming at you, shooting facts like a drunk gunslinger. And getting a lot of my words mixed up in the process. I'm sorry, folks. Oh, look at that community. Look at those people, though.
You're right. The fact that they have so many people on set, it does give it a vibe that it's just so rare, So often, any period movie, hell, any movie full stop, it can be hard to make it feel like a real place. Sometimes you don't want that. You want to be able to focus on the performances in a certain way. But in this film, it just makes it all feel, like you say, lived in, like a real living place. And the actors are good enough that it doesn't distract from them. It enhances them.
Would it be fair to say, do you see, this is super pretentious, folks, but I don't see Kurt Russell here. I see Wyatt. I don't see Sam Elliott here. I see Virgil.
Yeah.
Even though I think it was like a day or two before the end that Kurt admitted that he finally got the character. No, it was the final day.
Man, that's great. That's crazy.
He said he finally got the character because he was so distracted by everything else. And yet it feels so authentic, and everything has this edge. And again, I should say as well, because we talk about stuff, so there is the script that was written that got everyone on board, which is incredibly deep. Every character seemed to have this beautiful story to it. I wish we could find out this original script, because it sounds like the most amazing thing. But I will also say that this had very much like a Kevin Costner's Wyatt Earp problem, which was that I think it came in at something like 2 hours 40, or maybe even a shade under 3 hours. Yeah, the first cut was very, very long, and then Synergy chopped it to hell. I think it went down to 90 minutes. So you've got death by 1,000 cuts. So this is not only a compacted script where multiple scenes are either just chucked away, shot and never put in, or just amalgamated, but you've then got a cut where they just dumped 40, 50 minutes worth of stuff. And yet it still works. It still works. And you think the core of this, and I look at this, and for instance, they didn't build, people have said about Catherine's sets, she didn't build a set. She built a bar.
Yeah.
And you're a documentary team in this place. I mean, look at it. It looks like it's been there for ages.
Absolutely.
I think the director tried to nick part of the bar afterwards or something like that, but I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, that tracks. That's.
I should actually give some thanks here, because I know I won't do it otherwise, and I always feel bad about it. So scrolling through notes, desperately trying to find it. So cinematography is by William A. Fraker, who did a fantastic job and apparently had the patience of a saint. And Bruce Broughton, who was a replacement for the replacement of the replacement for the music composer, because again, everything was chaotic on this film. So just want to say beautiful work by both of them. Obviously, we can see the images on the screen, but we can't hear much of the soundtrack. That's a shame, but such is the way.
I mean, it should be fun. Just mention it does have a pretty decent soundtrack as well. This film.
It has a fantastic soundtrack, and the composer was asked. I don't know who gave him. I think this might have been George, actually, because there were moments that George did bring something, even when he was being annoying. But they asked the composer not to make a Western soundtrack, which I think is impressive, and so that's why you have a really distinctive, end result. It does work.
Yeah. It goes together really well.
I'm now desperately trying to find. I think it was one of Jar's early scripts. He did a TV movie for Chris Christopherson, and that was where he included the line, "Hey, why don't we have a spelling contest?" And so he brought it back into this, and that was one of the things that then sort of stayed in here.
See, now it's clear. I can't help but see Stephen Lang, as I've seen him in all the recent stuff now, facing off with Sam. It's fascinating because you always think of him as being quite an imposing figure now, but maybe it's just because Sam Elliott's really tall, but I kind of feel small in comparison.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
Which is interesting, to be honest, and unexpected.
Yeah, the way Val played this, so I mean, I think they call him Lunger.
Yeah, because he got turbo.
Because and it was one of those things that was just considered like a terminal.
It's a death sentence. I mean, famously, I think Robert Louis Stevenson had it, and he actually lived like near. He wasn't supposed to make it past childhood, and he ended up living into his 40s before passing on the island of Samoa, of all things. Yeah, but yeah, TB was it was death on legs, to be honest. If you had it, it's.
In terms of apologizing for stuff, Sam Elliott has gone on record as saying it's the sorriest pistol whip he's ever seen.
I mean,
it was something that they didn't do another take, and I think he was livid about it. And again, he was somebody that definitely had issues with the way that the script developed, but he kept it like on set. Everybody loved him, and one day he did get a bit annoyed in front of people. And he got annoyed, then he calmed down, and then he turned around to everyone and apologized. And it was like, that was him in a nutshell.
Yeah. And in fairness, although he might professionally have a bit of an issue with that pistol whip. In actuality, the way it's depicted, it actually works because the thing's a pistol whip is pistol hilt is quite a thing to be struck with, and the way they do it, or the way it's shot, the fact that it's kind of a gentle tap, but Lang sells it, and it makes it more real because it's
like a pro.
You know what? Yeah, you don't have to hit someone very hard with a pistol, but if you do,
as poor old John Philbin finds out just then. By the way, this is what I mean as well about blurring the lines between screen. So the person that Wyatt Earp just hit then, that's John Philbin. On the last day of shooting, Kurt Russell came up to John Philbin and apologized to him for not drinking with them and being friendly, and he deeply apologized. And you just think, when you see these guys on screen in their short moments together, they're antagonists. They're about to kill each other. But in real life, these guys went through a battle, and now they can look back on it with a lot of positivity. Even like Michael Rooker, who the author alludes to was less than complimentary about some of his time there, because he did suffer a lot of cuts. But of course, he then worked with Kurt Russell on Guardians of the Galaxy. And he was asked about working with Kurt. And you can tell as well, he's like, yeah, I worked with him on this, but it was nice to work with him on Guardians because we could all have a laugh. And if you read between the lines, it's like, it's nice to work with someone when we're not screaming at each other and we're dying of heat exhaustion and Val Kilmer's drunk constantly. Everyone is drunk constantly, it seems like it. And we're all drinking hot whiskey and we're all going out of our minds.
Yeah, it's nice that people have that self-awareness about themselves, because it could have been real easy just to go and say, I don't want to work with him, or can I have fewer scenes? But no, he knew that this was a hard shoot, and it was like 20 years removed. So yeah, with different people.
He's also someone as well that people maybe don't realize, but he has an impressive CV on him. He's done a lot of work. He's somebody that has worked through the lean times and the good. I mean, a lot of the people here they're constant hard workers. I mean, you look at Joanna Pacula here, who plays. I mean, her character name is Big Nose Kate, which is cruel, but she's basically Wyatt Earp's missus. She only gets a couple of scenes. Like, most of her stuff is cut out. Like, she has one more brief moment, and then you never see her again. I mean, that's the way that it happens with some of these characters. But she gives everything she can to those few small moments. And when you consider as well that, again, you've got a director screaming, but then you've got the real director, Kurt, just trying to manage everyone. And so much. And then you're drawn back to, obviously, Kurt, because Kurt, let's face it, he has a face suitable for Westerns. Yep. He has, his eyes are kind of in that perpetual squint, like he's struggling with the sun. At the beginning of the movie, when he gets off his horse, he actually goes down into a really deep squat. That's something that only somebody who rides would do, because they know exactly how stiff your legs get after riding. He was the real deal. There's some stuff I can't tell you, but there's some stuff that gets a little bit gross that he kind of just dealt with when it came to the horses, because he's grew up, I think, on a farm, or at least he had farm experience. And a lot of these guys as well, when they escape Hollywood, they have ranches. They're used to horses. And those people that could ride really excelled here. Now, that said, Kurt Russell and Val were competent riders, but they weren't expert riders. Something that we'll see later on in the film in a rather odd scene. But yeah, beautiful stuff. And this, again, real simple. You have the guys together, they're talking about should they do it or not. Val comes up, like Doc Holliday has the should we do it, should we not. He tries to dismiss Doc, all of that, all in one scene. It's incredible economy.
It really is.
Like this is 2 or 3 scenes easy, just shoved together.
And it's also because this is the big moment. This is shootout, and it's pretty much right at the halfway point of the film, just about. So it's really nicely put together that way. So I know in some cases the shootout's kind of treated as the point you're working to. I think for your Burt Lancaster Kirk Douglas movie, I'm pretty sure that's the end point of the film. That's where it leads to. Whereas here it's the midpoint. Sure, it's the big moment, but it's also halfway through the film. There's another hour to go.
Funny enough, they considered Michael Douglas at one point because of the link to Kirk Douglas. Also, I believe they shot a scene where the person who played Wyatt Earp, I think who played Wyatt Earp, when Kurt Russell's father was an actor playing one of the gang.
Oh wow!
They have a scene with him and that. There's loads. I mean, there's a scene that was shot and never used, where Charlton Heston squares off against Ringo. They're face to face. And it's like, Michael Bainer said, I want that scene for my kids and my grandkids, but it's disappeared, never to be found.
Man,
there's all these little things. And if I tell you, like, for instance, how deep this book is, if I told you that it's actually one of, I believe, the on-set security staff wearing a special suit, who's the one person that goes and chucks a bucket of water on the fire behind them. It's like, that's the level of detail this book went to. Really weird. Very, very odd. I do like the styles, though. Now, come on, D. Be honest. Did you want a duster like Doc Holliday has here?
What do you mean, did? I still do.
Oh, you do? I mean, I'm not going to lie, mate. I'd be with you on that one.
I mean, it's a good look. I mean, admittedly, I could never pull off as well as Kilmer could because I'm probably about twice his weight at this point. But I mean, all the costumes in this film are pretty spot on. Let's be fair.
Oh, yeah, the costume designer did an incredible job. They ended up sourcing a lot of the fabric. They couldn't get costumes, so they just sourced the fabric from Europe because, let's face it, that's where all this stuff came from at the time anyway.
Yeah. But also, can we just point out this film has some spectacular facial hair on display?
Oh, it does, yeah. I'm not going to talk about it now. We'll get back to facial hair in a bit. I will say one thing that George did. George was the one who suggested that Val Kilmer tempt with the wink and start the gunfight. That was George. So if he gets one thing right, he gets that right, which is crazy. And apparently Thomas Hayden Church got huge props from people for a little reflex movement he did with his leg as he died. Because again, a lot of the cast, this became such a thing where everyone stood around watching what they were shooting because it was such a battle to get it shot. So people were appraising the actors on set for their acting whilst they were doing their acting, which is like, it's a bit odd. That doesn't happen on films.
And I'll be honest, this gets across the chaotic messiness of...
Yes.
Because people forget that although this was the era of rifles and actual, what we tend to think of as modern bullets, this is still not far removed from the era of the musket. So even these are not terribly accurate weapons in the grand scheme of things. There's one of the great myths of shootouts is that these could be accurate weapons, and only in the hands of a very, very good shooter. And
even then, once you've shot it, there's still no guarantee that it's going to shoot straight.
Yeah. Or misfire, or any one of a dozen other things that could go wrong.
I haven't read anything about this, so this is just conjecture on my point. But Doc didn't even try and defend himself there. He shot at the ground. And I do think that one of the things that he and Ringo have in common in this film is this kind of this not willingness to die, but they do not care about dying.
Oh no, I mean, Doc, because of where he is in terms of his health, he knows he's living on borrowed time.
Yeah.
There's nothing. He doesn't care. He's willing to sell his life for his friends because there's nothing else. And that's what that kind of redeems his character in a lot of ways, because otherwise he's kind of a scumhole asshole. Whereas Ringo, he just has not a death wish, but I think he's just trying to find someone who is his equal.
He wants an ultimatum.
Yeah,
and he's kind of happy that he's happy to have it in the end.
Yeah,
he wants to die again. The end of the scene with the women coming out and all of that. Oh, and you see our guys as well, and Mr. Million, who I'm now going to call him, and Turkey Creek. That they're both in the background. Again, they'll become more and more prominent as time moves on. Now, Mayor Behan, who did exist, by the way. So we've seen him flouting around, doing not much of anything. What was the one thing that Joe Tenney, who played Johnny Behan, had that no other actor had?
Go on.
I'll give you a clue. We talked about it just before this gunfight.
Oh, an actual moustache.
No, he was the only one with a fake moustache. Because of his shooting commitments elsewhere, he wasn't able to grow a full moustache because he had to keep it clean shaven. So he was the only one who didn't grow full facial hair. So he almost felt like it was another thing that made him the odd man out. And of course, Kurt Russell was growing some ridiculously wonderful hair. I mean, look at was it Bonesaw Tomahawk?
Bone Tomahawk.
And the Tarantino film, Hateful Eight?
Yes, for Hateful Eight.
Yes.
I was thinking of a book series that's.
I'm so sorry, folks. We are so bad on this one. Okay, apologies, but we're trying to relay a lot of information, and also as well, my brain is a mess at the moment. But even during this film, like Goldie Hawn, his significant other, famously hates his facial hair.
Yeah.
And so all the actors are wearing this stuff on the last day when they knew that they had the gate clean. The last day, by the way, that the heavens opened and the rain washed the set away, basically. So the film never ended as much as sort of sunk. But all the actors got together and basically had a race to see who could hack off their moustache first.
That's funny.
Because again, anything to bond, anything to share a moment, anything that work's done. And when you're on sets like this, especially sets that are not going well, the poor old cast are suffering, but the crew are suffering immeasurably. As somebody who's been there, it is rotten. And also as well, depending on your cast as well, you might not be able to even look them in the eye whilst you're doing your job. Other ones, you might be quite pally with them. It just depends, it depends on the situation. But again, when you have people like Sam Elliott, you do have that bit of a crossover. People do chat, people do help each other out. God, Michael is he's so lost in this moment, isn't he?
I mean, they do a good job of getting across that the Clanton boys were a part of this gang, and it wasn't just a criminal endeavor. They were family, even if it wasn't by blood. And even though Ringo never really seemed to like any of them, they were probably the people he was closest to in the world. And God, I love that line. I'll be your Huckleberry.
So that would be from Walter Noble Burns' book Tombstone. And it was I think it was the historian that collaborated with Jar on his script said, I don't know if you're going to cover the confrontation between Doc Holliday and Johnny Ringo, but if you do, make sure to use that quote from that book. And I love that, because a lot of the stuff like Huckleberry, there's a lot of conjecture over what the term actually means.
Yeah.
But they do, like in the original script as well, they work really hard to use a lot of the phrases that they used at the time, which is why you don't hear any swearing. They have their equivalent of swearing, but of course you wouldn't know. Which I love that. I love the fact that it's so rich. And there's almost as well there's no fat left on the script or the shooting script because they're constantly moving from one scene to the other. Val gets up, does his moment, gets back down, and starts getting shaved again, and it's all in one sitting. It's incredible.
It really is. I mean, the thing is, though, you struggle to imagine this film with any other cast, don't you? Because everyone seemed.
Yes.
I know there were other actors who should have had these roles, or were in these roles and then were fired or left or whatever. But what we're left with is cast that it feels right in a way very few others do, you know?
Yeah. Let's have a look. Joe originally wanted Liam Neeson to play Wyatt Earp, with David Bowie as a potential Doc Holliday, Jeremy Irons, and I mentioned Michael Douglas already. Tommy Lee Jones was down for the role of Curly Bill. Richard Gere was desperate to play Wyatt Earp and wouldn't stop pestering the director to death about it.
Wow.
There were a lot of people.
I mean, I'm trying to imagine. I mean, Douglas is an odd one because he's never really done much in the way of westerns, has he? To my knowledge.
No, and there's that.
He did
familiar...
that film in Africa, if I remember rightly.
Oh, the Ghost and the
Ghost and the Wild, I think it is, or the Ghost. But you know, for what I mean, where he's the veteran hunter and Val's the young gun on the outfit. But that's probably the closest that Douglas has ever come, which is weird given his father did a lot of westerns in his career. But Michael, he's never really done that sort of movie full stop, really.
No, I think as well, a lot of the actors here never went back to the genre too much. Yeah. I think Val actually did do a role where he played Wyatt Earp at one point. Because Val had a career downturn for various reasons. You know, this is obviously before his illness. But I think he played I think that was the way they hooked him as well, is that he gets to play the other role just for once. But really, for these guys, this was, for a lot of them, it was a one and done, and you never got back to them. And yet they play shades of the characters here and other things. So Michael Rooker does play this kind of criminal but with a moral code in other films.
Yeah.
Paxton obviously plays elements of his character here in multiple other films. There's an element of Kurt Russell in his performance that you see in all of his films. It's crazy. Whilst this is going on, by the way, we have the lightning. And although on the windows it is done for effect, there was an awful lot of lightning. And it wouldn't come with rain, it would just be lightning. And it was a common, not issue, but just a common thing that tended to happen. So they incorporated it where they could into the filming, into the shoots.
It's a smart move. To be honest. And again, it's a great bit just to get across how medicine was brutal, man.
Yeah. There was only limited stuff they could do. Especially out here, which is essentially frontier.
Yeah. A gunshot. I mean, if there's anything, bullets they're never clean. But even here, in this period,
it was rough.
Yeah.
I will say, because of the chops and the edits, so Sam Elliott's character, he, in this cut, he's the one who basically starts a lot of this. He's the one that takes a stand. He's the one that wants to put a badge on. So him then dismissing Wyatt does feel really odd. It's like there's an element that's clearly been missed here. But
Yeah.
and I always felt it was almost unfair on Wyatt. But there is that relationship as well. I don't know. Obviously, I don't want to ask you too much about it. I'm not going to say too much about it myself. But if you've grown up in a family with uncles and you see their relationship to your parents, and you see that idea of, who is the oldest brother, who has the responsibility, who's the youngest one, who gets away with stuff, how are they treated? You see a lot of like the relationship between Wyatt and his brothers. You see that mirrored in a lot of your relationships, I'd imagine. I certainly do. And this idea of responsibility and how it can drive people to make the wrong choices.
Yeah. I mean, from one perspective, the stance that Morgan takes is absolutely morally right. He wants to make a life here. He wants to do the right thing. He wants to establish some rules. And honestly, it's not something you could imagine should really be that big of a deal in the grand scheme of things. But plays out the way it plays out. And it escalates to where we get to with Verge.
Yeah, well, there's a couple of things here. Firstly, it's only when watching this film back that I realised that if you do look at the moment that he's shot, you do see the gunman in the window. It's very, very fleeting, but you never quite know who it is. In reality, there were a couple of months between OK Corral, the attack on one brother, and the killing of the other. But you have to say as well, Bill Paxton, Alien, Predator, Terminator, Cowboy. He's died to some particularly nasty enemies. This is almost the lightest way he's died, I think.
Lightest, and yet somehow also the most protracted, which is...
Yes. Yeah, he doesn't get to go let's dance and throw a golf ball.
Yes. Jeez. I mean, Paxton was an interesting... I'm still so sad that he passed when he did, because he was still relatively young at the time and kind of reaching a point where people recognized him.
Yeah, I think Big Love did a lot.
Yeah.
It's funny, isn't it? All these films, and yet it was a TV show that sort of solidified him.
Yeah.
But he was enjoying as well, not his golden years, but how do I say it? Like he'd reached the point where he was a Hollywood establishment.
Yes.
He was a meme, he was a joke, but he was also respected and he was valued. And so therefore, when he came onto a project, people took notes.
Absolutely. I mean,
and he'd even done his own directorial thing, and he'd done, stuff. And it was just, he deserved extra time.
Yeah. And especially because it wasn't cancer. It was, he went for heart surgery and there was a complication.
Yes, that was it.
And that's what did it. And it's, I remember when I read it.
It's unfair.
Yeah, because his Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. performances were still coming out at that point. And they did a lovely thing at the end where at the end of the last episode he was in, they dedicated the episode to him.
They also cast his son. His son is in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. as well.
Go back
Which
and check.
I don't know if he's playing a younger version of him, or whether it's a homage to him, or if it's a different character. But they did bring his son in, which was nice.
That's cool. Yeah.
Again, you have a shot of you have the death of the brother, and then in almost one shot you have another moment with the soon-to-be romantic interest, and then suddenly the wife turns up again, almost inextricably. Just telling us many quick stories. Now, there was a lot of things that this film could do, but unfortunately, beating a failed rain system was not one of them. So you can see in the background, the rain only goes on for about another 10 meters.
Yeah.
Because they just didn't work on the night. But again, it doesn't, it happens.
It does.
But look at the lovely reversal here. You had this play out the other way, not 5-10 minutes ago in the film. And in fact, at this point, as the viewer, you kind of wonder how's anything going to continue here. By the way, that was the quick moment where we saw Kate for the last time. I think it's for the last time. And it's why I always wonder if maybe Val's comment that is said a little later on is maybe cut from a different scene where he says goodbye to her. Because I know they shot it. I'm pretty sure at least they scripted it. So maybe he talks about her. I don't know. But
yeah, I mean, that actually be a real interesting thing to for an extended cut, just to see the relationships that we're missing bits from in this cut.
Yeah.
Because once you start to think about it, it becomes a little more obvious. I don't think it hurts it terribly much, but it certainly becomes
we talked about this. I'm trying to think. Highlander. We talked about the fact that Princes of the Universe, the first part of that song is used in Highlander. So Highlander fans know the Queen song Princes of the Universe. They don't. They know the first little bit. The rest of the song is very different. And they're happy, but when they hear the rest of it, they think it's a bit odd. So I wonder if we saw the full film, or at least the footage that, again, Kurt Russell has, if they ever remade this closer to the original script, would we still like it, or would we find it a bit odd because there was too much information?
That's an interesting thought. I mean, given the sort of length of the original cut we were talking about, it's one of those things where I suspect it would work better as a prestige TV project, like a 4-part miniseries. Give it 4 hours just to breathe, which I think it's so weird because a lot of films like this predate that era of HBO doing that HBO style of TV project.
Yeah. There was, I mean, when we look at Costner's film and Costner's involvement, a lot of it wasn't down to studio politics, it was down to ego. Speaking of which as well, so Costner's film obviously was a lot longer. They struggled to cut out a lot of the stuff going on here, but a lot of the things that he did or said at the time were then subsequently proven false. And so that's kind of added to the luster of this film and the poor look of his film. Also as well, I believe everyone outside of him basically as Wyatt Earp is is a lot lessened, let's just say. The whole Wyatt posse, like the two people that I mentioned earlier on who do appear a lot later in this film and turn up here, they are so poorly featured in Costner's film that they're barely even cameos.
Yeah.
But they literally come swanning into the back of the shot here. This is your gang. So after all the setup with everything else, the brothers are now gone. But it's not Kurt on his own, and it's not Kurt and Doc on their own. There's a team, but this is the team made up of people that have kind of appeared in the background up until now. And I love it. I absolutely love it.
Absolutely. I think this is also the first film that I can remember seeing where it does make Cowboy not of heroes, but of bad guys.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah.
Because of how the West got mythologized.
Speaking of which as well, very quickly, because we're going to see a lot of this in the next 5 minutes. So cowboys did wear sashes. Belts and belt buckles weren't really a thing. Often it wasn't practical, so sashes were a key thing, and the cowboys did indeed wear red sashes. Now there wasn't a huge cull of them like there is here. There's not. I think there was only like maybe half a dozen at most that were actually killed, but it was still like a big thing of let's get anyone with the sash. So. This is, I mentioned the Buckaroos. This is a lot of the stuff that they got involved with.
I was going to say, you can tell because of how many shots are kind of below the neckline.
Yeah. So, Peter Shurenko and the other gentleman who I've now forgotten the name of, so our supporting actors, they're both really strong riders. They were given really fast horses because they were strong riders, and so they could absolutely pelt it. Val and Kurt were not good riders. They were given slow horses. When you see them like this riding together, the two guys on the outside are on the outside to stop the horses on the inside from veering off. They're also trying desperately to hold their horses back because they're the faster horses, whilst Kurt and Val were having difficulty getting their horses to go fast. So at one point, you can even see Shurenko, even in the shot, say something, and he's actually saying to his mate, "Stop going fast or we'll get fired." And this, ladies and gentlemen, if you're watching along with us, if not, don't worry. But we're watching one of the pivotal battles, and it's a proper gun battle. You know, lots of ducking and firing and ducking and firing. This was literally the first thing the replacement director directed on his first day.
Oh wow,
which is utter chaos.
Yeah, that's kind of nuts. That bonkers. Because this is not a simple shoot by any stretch of the setup here, where you got basically 3 sets of combatants.
Mm.
So you got the bunch who are flanking Wyatt and his gang, and man, this is, and it is the big standoff between the main hero and the main villain, effectively.
The main, yeah, and it's weird because it's the main villain who is kind of the main villain, but not kind of, and it's kind of early in the film for him to have his show off, and
it is, yeah.
The famous "no," which Andy has mentioned on multiple occasions. Hello, Decade Andy. That was a completely random cutaway shot in a completely different area against a blue background. The shotgun that Curly Bill throws away actually broke just before filming, so they used a nitrogen canister because they had no other way to make it look as though it was working. And yeah, there's all sorts of stuff, and things were so tense on this day, really, really bad, that Shurenko and a couple of the extras actually had started a pretend fight with their fingers going pew pew, and by the end everyone joined in and it broke the ice, which is nice. Now, Jar he worked on something, I think it was for the Magnificent Seven. And he had a script for it. I think it was that. I can't remember, and I've got so many notes here, I'm never going to find it. But in that script is where he first put this little conversation that Texas Jack, I think, has with Doc, which is, "Why are you doing this, Doc? You're sick, you're ill. He's my friend. Well, I've got loads of friends. Well, I don't." That's where it comes from. It comes from a different film. Same writer, same original writer.
Yeah.
But he wanted to include it in here because I don't think he ever made that film. So,
I mean, it's a hell of a line, to be fair.
And again, this is, who is he saying it to? He's not saying it to Wyatt. He's not even saying it to Kelly Bill or the Cowboys. He's saying it to, again, one of the 2 extras who've now become pivotal to this tale.
Yeah.
2 actors that you don't know, which kind of makes it more realistic.
This is, I mean, this is one of the bits where I do wonder as well about needing more time.
This was shot, yeah.
Well,
and you see the whole thing.
Well, more just so you have stuff with understanding how the Cowboys are now deputized by the county sheriff, and I should say, Luke Perry does kind of kill it here as this more sensitive, bookish man who does have. He is a man of principle.
It's funny because I think only here does maybe she recognizes just for a second that maybe he did care.
Yeah.
Because she's busy blasting all of them for being scum. But in this moment, there we go. She just, that little bit of recognition. It's really bold. I will say, though, that part of the scene is not ruined, but made more funny by the fact that by this point, people were taking prop badges as a bit of a luxury item. So some of the badges in the background are made out of cardboard because they didn't have enough badges. It became a bit of a hot item to take on set. Apparently, though, the lead actors, although I think Kurt Russell's costume has been displayed, I think all the lead actors did get to keep their costumes. I don't know if they got to keep it or if they just took them anyway, but it was definitely a consideration. But I love the fact we're down to 5 people. 5 people, including 2 actors you really know, 1 actor you kind of know, who was actually more famous for Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer, which wasn't exactly a well-known film. And then the 2 random guys who were just there, living their best life. Oh, poor old Doc. D, by the way, you need to talk as much as you can for the rest of this film, because especially after last episode where I was like, oh, I'm not going to talk much. He says, by the way, as we're recording, the last episode that we released was The Mummy. That was where I made that pledge, and then promptly talked all over D. So D, tell me about the legend that is Chuck Heston.
Oh, Chuck Heston, the man, the myth, the NRA advert. It's hard talking about Charlton Heston because the man was a bona fide acting legend. Make no bones about it. He was a magnificent actor. Man, though, were his politics problematic? Which is a shame. This is, I mean, Heston, his filmography from, I think, 50s through to the early 80s is quite something, because there wasn't really a genre he didn't do in some form or other.
Yeah, and it's crazy because his sci-fi stuff is arguably as powerful as his Western stuff.
Absolutely. I mean, the Omega Man is iconic. Planet of the Apes, iconic. He literally is almost the definition of iconic movie performances because he had so many of them. And then he had all. I mean, he did in his latter years. He was a solid support actor. He did a lot of sort of cameos where it was, oh, that's Charlton Heston. He did this. He was in True Lies around this sort of time. I'm not even sure he was credited for that one, to be fair, but he was in it because I think he wanted to do a James Cameron movie. And then it's one of those cases where, because he was such a famous figure, he maintained that because of how powerful his performances were in those movies that stuck with people. It meant that later in his life, when his politics hadn't really evolved with the changing times, he was a fierce advocate for the National Rifle Association in the States. And it's one of those cases where it did damage his his legacy, unfortunately.
I will say, on this film, he was an absolute trooper. He was gracious, he was courteous, he was ridiculously humble. One thing that a lot of people have said as well is that he was obviously an extremely old man at this point. You would see him sort of bent over, shuffling around. And there were a lot of people that when he first, before his first shot, they were like, there's no way this person can act. This is going to be an embarrassment. And they said, and action. And people said he literally seemed to grow a foot. Taller and wider. and he was Charles Heston. And then as soon as they said cut, he deflated again. And
Yeah.
but he hung around with the extras. He would chat to everyone. He was perfectly gracious and kind. And so that's one thing that maybe
Well, that's the other thing. Although his politics problematic, as a man, as a person.
Yeah.
I mean, famously on the set of Al Cid, I think it was it Al Cid? I get confused as to which one it was. There was one film where his female lead co-star, her husband at the time was basically being an asshole at dinner one night, and he basically told him, "Do that again, and I will break you." In no uncertain terms.
I think as well. I think it's. I don't want to. Let's just say I've heard another instance of that where he didn't say anything and he's always regretted it. And
Yeah.
that was with a very different person because it wasn't someone he co-starred with. But
Yeah.
it's he was a great guy. I do think as well as I don't want to talk too much about modern politics, but even back then, the fact was that people were pushed into extremes. So with the NRA stuff, it was either get rid of everything or don't get rid of everything. Whereas obviously, if you had a more nuanced outlook, people could maybe find a common ground.
Yeah.
And I think as well, people as well pushed and pulled people into those positions. So, and again, he always came across as very courteous, and I imagine that there would be a great conversation. Who was it? Oh, what did we discuss? There's somebody. Oh, that was it. It was Demolition Man. God, we're doing all the hits here, folks. Demolition Man, where Jesse Ventura chatted with our assistant about the military.
Yeah.
And, as the guy, he said on his commentary, he said, I chat to him about gays in the military. That was the exact phrase he used, by the way, ladies and gents. And they came to an accord. And it's just like, yeah, if you chat to those people in a different environment, you have those sort of outcomes. So it would have been nice to have a chat with him about that in a less partisan environment. But anyway,
I think
we're into a bit of an interesting situation because you've got these moments here where there was so much shot, they cut it down, but the actors are still trying to make it work for each other. And because you've got Val and Kurt as the leads, you kind of need to keep, even though there's more stuff you could cut out of theirs, there's also, you need to keep their stuff in because they're the ones that people will go and see at the cinema. So they ran the risk as well of being seen to be cutting loads of other people's stuff and not enough of their own. But the danger was if they did cut a lot of their stuff, they'd damage the film and everyone would suffer.
Yeah, it's a tricky one to walk that tightrope because, like you say, they're the headline acts, effectively. It's the partnership that people are going to see.
Now, if you see, Chuck is in a few long shots here. Obviously, he's got some close-ups, but the long shots that you see of him are not him. The reason is because, and any shot as well from behind him is not him. The reason was they looked at a lot of his dailies and they realized that his wig was askew in most of them. So they actually got a member of the cast, I think an extra, who looked a lot like him. And so he played a version of Chuck in a lot of the wide shots. So always good, always fun to see.
Yep. I always appreciate hearing things like that, just because it reminds you that filmmaking it's wild, dude. It's wild.
It is. Oh, it's crazy. And you're one big family, often unhappy, but you're still a big family.
Yeah.
And so you end up again with these moments like actors, and we've talked about it a bunch of films where actors have ended up surviving the shoot because they got on with people, or because of a change in script, suddenly they become the main guy. And like we talk about these guys. So, for instance, you said at the beginning that Michael Biehn said he'd never worked with Val, but he had worked with Doc Holliday. Well, these guys, they worked out this scene. They worked it out together. Now, Val is in character, but they still worked it out. And they specifically went, we are not doing this crappy, we stand far apart in the street and shoot at each other. We want it to be close. We want it to be an intimate, and we want to make this scene work. And you look at the way that they did this, and this threads. I've got to say, by the way, there's the costume designer said his one regret of this movie was he wasn't on set this day, and part of Johnny's hat is on backwards, but no one noticed except him. So clearly, it was like he's infuriated, but nobody gives a crap. But in real life, Johnny Ringo was found armed to the teeth, shot in the head, and nobody has ever figured out who did it or why. So this is a potential telling of the truth.
As legends go, this is a good interpretation of it.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. And I honestly can't imagine another pair doing this. Because they're both excellent here. The way they've built the tension between these two.
And they're so close.
Yeah. You're right.
And the way they do it, there's whoever wins. There's no, you don't miss from this distance. And that's the whole thing.
And Doc still wants Johnny to do it.
Yeah.
He's hoping he can get that there's enough left of him in there.
And Johnny, fair point, he does shoot. He does get a shot off. It's just way too late. It'd be easy to talk about mawkish stuff, and because a lot of these elements, they do feel like there was a lot of improv just to get these shots done. But a slight tangent here. So all the gun belts that we've seen.
Yeah.
Right. So this was filmed not long after the filming of The Crow, which obviously the issues that happened there. A shard of a piece of plastic was left in a gun. It was not cleaned out. A blank was then placed into it. The force of the blank expelled the plastic and it killed Brandon Lee. So one day the guy's doing some checks and a guy comes up to him and he goes, I think there's a bit of a problem here because my gun belt feels a bit off. And he said, this especially, what's this doing in there? And it turned out he had a real bullet in his gun belt. And so the guys checked all of the gun belts, and there were about a dozen real bullets in these gun belts. And people had been wondering, do we just fill our? Because most of them were blanks. So do we just fill our gun? So there could have you could have had a really nasty situation. Yeah, which obviously was proven recently with something.
Yeah, that could have gone horribly awry.
This is mostly Buckaroo work, by the way, the guys jumping off. And here we go. Here's the two guys on the outside desperately trying to keep their horses slow. And you can see they're struggling. Whilst the two in the middle are like, they're not moving fast enough. But yeah, these guys, so the Buckaroo group, they were always on set together, even though they tried not to at some points. But loads and loads of little moments. And of course, they could go off on the second unit and shoot for days, which they did. And so that's why you have so much of a glut of footage. And it is nice because you've always got stuff to work through. And by the end of the shoot, of course, all these actors are so comfortable with their horses. Really well done by all of them. Beautiful horses as well.
Oh, yes. And for all the Alan Kirk wasn't as comfortable.
You can see one of them literally turn to the other and go, slow down.
But fair play to them. They put the work in. They did for riding, That's it's not an easy thing to do and act at the same time. Gosh dang it, they did it.
They did a great job. This final scene between these two men was originally 5 pages of dialogue.
Lordy.
And Val said, hang on, I'm meant to be on my deathbed. How am I talking for 5 pages? And he just kept laughing. So they did what they did. They sat down. How do we figure this out? And they realized that one of the languages that these characters had was gambling. So they just played cards. And so a lot of this, I don't think you wouldn't call it improv, but it was definitely a condensed moment, if you like. And obviously we don't see Kate here, we don't see anyone else with Doc. It's a very singular scene. It's almost like a jump forward in time, I guess.
Yeah.
But it's lovely the way they do it. I always wondered though, what does Val comment on right at the end? Because to me, and watching this in prep for this, the only thing I can think of is he was surprised that he died with his boots off.
Yeah, I mean, Doc's the sort who that's not how he would have expected to go. In fact, this whole film is effectively him trying to egg people into gunning him down. So, I mean, he goes in bed, cared for, even if it is in a sanitarium bed, which you should point out that had a different connotation at this point. It was not just for the mentally unwell. It was a place of respite and hospice care.
When this film ended, both Kurt and Val bought each other, I believe it was plots of land in Tombstone as a present without realizing it.
It's not just plots of land.
Was it cemetery?
Yeah, they bought. Russell definitely bought Kilmer a cemetery plot in Tombstone, which that kind of sums up the two guys completely, doesn't it? That they clearly bonded that much, and they appreciated the myth of the story.
They bought into it.
Yeah, but they felt a closeness to it.
You contrast that with Costner, who, amongst other things, he told people that he tried to film in Tombstone, but no one had ever gotten back to him, which he'd never done, and everyone proved it.
Yeah.
There was also some controversy around Wyatt Earp's Tombstone, which had been damaged repeatedly over the years. He offered to pay for a new one, but the Tombstone town voted no because they believed it was self-serving, and he was only doing it for the press. And there's a lot. I tell you what, the more you read into it, I know the author is obviously coloured by the fact that everybody involved in this film still cares about it, but Costa gets such a bad rap from this. And of course, when his film came out, everyone just said it was boring, and it was a huge flop.
I mean, it was one of the clearest Oscar bait movies I think I've seen advertised in it. That was one of the points where I first came to realize what that could mean. You know?
Yeah. Well, I think was it after Postman or before?
I think it was before Postman was.
Postman was him doing Wyatt Earp, but doing it in the style of Waterworld. You know, just
if I remember rightly, Waterworld came after Wyatt Earp, and then came because Waterworld and Postman were kind of a brutal 1-2 for him.
Yeah,
if I remember
right. Of course, yes. Wyatt Earp did write a little story. Again, he was trying to make money out of his name, but Josephine really spurred him on in this. But yeah, it's this little look at him looking at his feet.
Yeah, that tracks. I mean, as Kilmer's played him, he would find that very funny.
It's funny. It reminds me of, and this is a bit of a 40K nod here, but it reminds me of the idea that Caiaphas Cain died in a nice environment, safe environment after all of his years of dodging death by millimeters. And yeah, the idea that Doc dies in this place of relative safety is always a bit of it must be a bit of a joke to him. The universe has one last laugh. Oh, we've not spoken much about Dana here.
No.
Dana she'd made a name for herself as being one of those actresses that carried a certain electricity to her. She caused a little bit of fun. She was quite mischievous. When they were all staying at a hotel together, she once went skinny dipping, and like in full view of everybody, just for the hell of it. She was quite a character, but she never sort of broke out in terms of film. She did a lot of stuff on TV, and obviously she's still working to this day. But she was always completely magnetic as this character. Though I'd love to have seen the original casting of Lisa Zane and see what that could have brought.
Yeah, that could have been interesting. But you're right. She is one of these actresses who's, although she has had other movie roles, most of her success has been on the small screen. But it's been good success, if you know what I mean. She's led quite a few productions. So,
I mean, a lot of people did like a couple of the Buckaroos ended up getting their equity cards, and like they were part of the Actors Union after this. It was great. There's all sorts of stories. I don't think it breaks the illusion to tell you that these were all finely shredded pieces of plastic, that they were an utter nightmare for everyone to clear up, that they had to take it out of everybody's hair, or the horse's hair, or the background artist's hair. Everyone was thoroughly sick of this stupid snow. That even people were saying to the director, "Why do you want this stupid scene in the snow? It makes no sense whatsoever." Oh well. This on a film that it did go over budget. It did. But again, it did handsomely well. And yeah, when Robert Mitchum, who was originally meant to star in this, then was told he wouldn't have a role. Then he was told to lie about not having a role and told everyone he had a bad back. Then was asked to become the narrator. As he talks about, they had good times and bad after this. They really did. I urge you, anyone, to have a look at the later life of Wyatt Earp and Josephine. It's crazy what they got up to. And again, a lot of it is not as honorable as you think it is, but that's just the way it goes. And as we cut to the credits, they had to finally do something with all the extra footage they shot. Again, Kevin Jarre gets a little nod. I think that's the main nod he gets. But yeah, they just found ways to use some of the extra footage in this credit scene, which is nice.
Yeah, I mean, at least it's getting use out of it, you know? It would have been a shame to let it all go to waste. But it is such a good movie, though. For all the drama that went on in its production, it holds together so well.
It does. I do wonder if I think the depth of script and the depth of what was shot, there's Catherine getting a shout out, good for her. But I think because of that, it built a cast, a crew, and a story in a film that was so strong that even when it was gutted, it still had strength.
Absolutely.
And so although, like Kurt even said, this is the worst piece of shit I've ever seen at the first screening. And then he quickly sort of backtracked. Oh, no, sorry, I was talking about the music or something like that. It's like they've gotten over the fact that it wasn't what they made, but they're still all proud of it. And all of them have been recognized because of it. All of them have been praised because of it. Even though they might not like their role, they still contributed to something that was really good.
Absolutely. I mean, I think everyone can. If anyone involved in this isn't proud of it, they should be, because man. Oh, and I forgot it was Tara Quinn playing the town mayor. Another one of those character actors you just go, he's been in everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that was even before Lost, to be fair. He was one of those utility players.
People have not, like, he was so big, like maybe 10 years after this, he was so visible in Hollywood.
Yeah,
absolutely.
But I mean, even before this, Terry Quinn, he had at least one Star Trek role. He was recurring on the X-Files. One of the main supporting cast of Millennium, which was a big production for a couple of years, around the same time as the X-Files towards the end. of the 90s,
Mm.
and then lost, which kind of made him a bit of a household name for a while, which
I think most of the people here have had a moment to shine.
I
It's
think
either before or afterwards, but it was. Oh, I've got to say, if you read this book, the amount of stuff about Adam C. Taylor, the first assistant director, that guy put up with so much stuff. You've got to read it. He was so harassed by the director that when on the final day all the buckaroos got together and gave him a special present, purely to thank him for putting up with the amount of shit that he put up with.
well,
It
that's
was
nice.
genuinely, well, no, because they were also so hacked up with the director that there was
Well,
anything
yeah,
they could do to.
that as well, but
But yeah, folks, I don't know if I should apologize for the amount of stuff.
no, don't, because
But what I would say is, if from this, especially for this recording, if you come away from it going, hey, look, there's a lot of weird stuff going on, I'd be interested in this. Is the book that Adam's talking about any good? It really is. And it's not a hard read. There's a lot to it, but I'm going to put a link to it in the show notes. But if you can get hold of a copy, it is absolutely worth it. Because again, you get to see, especially from all the actors, you do get to see their human side. And I think it's something that the next time that you see Kurt Russell in something, or you see, I don't know, Michael Bain in something, or Stephen Lang, you'll see the other side, the good and the bad in this book. But it will make you appreciate as well what a challenge it is for actors on sets like this.
well, I'll be honest, I know that I actually quite fancy picking up at least a digital copy to have a read through, because I do enjoy a good, that sort of production diary of how a film has gone together, all the ups and downs, all the dramas.
Cool.
So
And
I'm actually very glad you went so deep into this, because it is a film whose the legend around its making kind of doesn't necessarily overshadow it, but it's a story that
it enhances.
it does, because as you've been going through things, I've just kind of my admiration for the work cast put in and the production team put in to provide what we got out of it. I think is very impressive, to be honest.
Cool.
So
Nice one. And thank you as always, Dee, for this one. The next one that we do, I might actually just introduce it, then introduce you all to Dee, and then walk away for 2 hours. We'll see. We'll see if we can get that far. That will set the balance. But anyway, is there anything else you want to say about this film before we wrap up?
just for folks, thank you for watching along as we've yammered, if that's what you've done. I hope this hasn't been your first time watching this movie, because I'm sorry we've ruined it for you in that regard. But no, I'm so glad we did this, because Tombstone is another one of those movies that.
Sorry, I just think they've got Buckaroo Coordinator and there's Sharenko there. Fantastic. Sorry, mate. Go on.
No, I was just going to say, Tombstone is another one of those movies that it's not hard to find it nowadays to watch, but it's one, and it's one that's reputation has grown over the years, even though, like you say, it was well received at the time. I'm so glad it continues to find an audience.
Cool.
So, yeah.
And on that note, we will ride off into the sunset. Thanks for joining us, folks, and we'll see you again soon.
Yep. Have a good one, folks. Bye-bye.
Bye. Hey, folks, if you enjoyed the show, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. We chat about new movies every fortnight. And if you're interested in hearing more from us, and if you like a bit of fantasy, 40k, or tabletop gaming, the links to our parent channel, the Fluffenhammer podcast, are in the show notes.